What if I told you that Italy once ruled the galaxies of imagination, long before Hollywood claimed the stars? From psychedelic space odysseys to gothic fantasies drenched in political paranoia, these forgotten films dared to dream bigger than their budgets and paid a heavy price. Some were banned, others vanished, but all of them shocked the world. Let us rediscover the strangest visions Italian cinema ever launched. Number 14. Planet of the Vampires, 1965. When audiences first entered Mario Bava's Planet of the Vampires, they were not ready for what they saw. This was no ordinary monster flick. It was a hallucinatory journey through space filmed on a shoestring, yet crafted with eerie brilliance. Two spacecrafts crash land on a mysterious planet shrouded in fog. The surviving crew soon realize something unspeakable lurks beneath the surface. The bodies of their dead comrades begin to rise. The film blurred lines between horror and science fiction, with its glossy lighting and surreal atmosphere that predated Ridley Scott's Alien by more than a decade. Bava created an entire universe on a soundstage using mirrors, smoke, and colored gels that turned poverty into poetry. Critics at first dismissed it as pulp nonsense, but others whispered that Hollywood later stole its mood and look. The controversy ran deeper. Some Italian censors tried to block its release, accusing Bava of spreading occult imagery during a time when Catholic Italy frowned upon the supernatural. American distributors re-edited it and added new voices to soften its terrifying tone, yet the film lived on like a haunting dream. Today, Planet of the Vampires is hailed as a masterpiece of minimalist imagination, proof that cosmic terror can bloom even in the cheapest soil. Its influence echoes in Alien, Prometheus, and beyond. Bava's vision reminded the world that fear does not need realism, only atmosphere and courage. Number 13. The 10th Victim, 1965. Before reality television and corporate thrillers came, The 10th Victim, a dazzling satire directed by Elio Petri that imagined a future where murder became televised entertainment. The film starred Marcello Mastroianni and Ursula Andress locked in a deadly game where contestants hunted each other for sport and sponsorship deals. Beneath the sleek style was a brutal mirror of modern society's obsession with fame and violence. At release, many critics did not know what to make of it. Was it comedy satire or cold prophecy? The Vatican's film office condemned its moral emptiness, calling it dangerous to youth. Some Italian networks refused to advertise it, fearing public outrage over its glamorization of killing. In America, it was trimmed and marketed as camp. But decades later, the same concept inspired The Running Man, Battle Royale, and The Hunger Games. Behind the scenes, tensions burned. Andress refused to film certain scenes, fearing they would make her appear cruel, while Mastroianni reportedly joked that he felt like a mannequin in a fashion show of death. The studio demanded a more romantic ending, and Petri reluctantly obeyed. Yet his original cut hinted at a world where humanity had already lost its soul. Today the movie stands as one of Italian cinema's most visionary works, a colorful dystopia that saw our future with chilling accuracy. It warned that when killing becomes spectacle, empathy dies first. Number 12. Danger, Diabolik, 1968. When Dino De Laurentiis unleashed Danger Diabolik, the world was not ready for a supervillain who looked this cool. Based on a popular Italian comic, it followed a masked thief who outsmarted governments and stole with style. Director Mario Bava again turned cheap sets into pop art wonders, creating a kaleidoscope of color and chaos that rivaled any James Bond film of the decade. Critics at the time were divided. Some called it genius, others trash. American censors found its anti-hero too seductive, its violence too gleeful. Bava's wild visuals, neon lighting, and surreal pacing confused studios used to linear storytelling. The Italian press accused it of glorifying crime, while youth audiences embraced it as rebellion in motion. Production was a circus. Budget cuts forced Bava to improvise elaborate car chases with miniatures and cardboard. Actor John Philip Law nearly quit after a stunt explosion singed his costume. Yet somehow, the chaos translated into hypnotic rhythm on screen. The film bombed in the United States, but over time became a cult sensation. Musicians, designers, and filmmakers from the Beastie Boys to Quentin Tarantino praised its fearless style. What once seemed silly became sacred. Diabolik proved that Italy's sci-fi and fantasy spirit thrived not through imitation, but reinvention. It celebrated art over logic, chaos over control. Its legacy whispers that sometimes the future belongs not to heroes, but to the beautiful criminals who dare to dream louder. Number 11. The Wild Wild Planet, 1966. By the mid-60s, Italian filmmakers were inventing entire galaxies on studio backlots smaller than school gyms. The Wild Wild Planet, directed by Antonio Margheriti, was one of the boldest. It promised interstellar spectacle on a modest budget, and somehow delivered a fever dream instead. In this futuristic tale, a sinister corporation kidnaps people to create hybrid humans bred for obedience. Audiences came expecting a cheap Star Trek imitation, but what they got was a psychedelic nightmare where science was both salvation and curse. Neon lights pulsed across cardboard corridors, while actors in shiny uniforms spoke of cloning and genetic control, themes decades ahead of their time. The Italian government's cultural board nearly banned it for depicting human experimentation during an era when post-war ethics were sacred. Religious groups protested outside cinemas, calling it immoral science. Behind the camera, Margheriti fought censors and financiers. His crew worked double shifts painting sets reused from sword and sandal epics. The miniature effects constantly broke down. Actors complained of fainting under blinding studio lights that simulated alien suns. Yet through the chaos emerged a singular vision, campy but disturbingly prophetic. Though dismissed as pulp, at first The Wild Wild Planet aged into a cult classic. Its sequels formed the Gamma 1 saga, long before cinematic universes were fashionable. Today, film historians see it as a brave fusion of pulp fantasy and social paranoia, warning that progress without conscience leads only to mutation. Number 10. Hercules Against the Moon, Men, 1964. At first glance, this entry looked like a typical peplum adventure, muscled hero, ancient kingdom. But director Giacomo Gentilomo took a wild turn. Hercules, Against the Moonmen, hurled the Greek demigod straight into outer space. A cosmic storm brings lunar invaders to Earth who demand human sacrifices in exchange for peace. Hercules, of course, chooses to fight the gods themselves. The film's reputation was instantly infamous. Critics mocked it as madness. Audiences cheered its absurdity. It became one of the strangest hybrids of myth and science fiction ever produced. Italian distributors faced backlash for mixing sacred mythology with alien horror. Church officials condemned it as blasphemy, while studio executives feared it would ruin the heroic brand. Production was chaos. Sets collapsed. Extras fainted inside suffocating monster costumes made from rubber and glue. American International Pictures redubbed it and marketed it as exotic camp. Yet beneath the silliness lay a genuine artistic ambition to merge cosmic fantasy with human courage. Over decades, it transformed from laughingstock to legend. Mystery Science Theater. 3000 revived it with affectionate mockery, and modern critics recognized its bold surrealism. It showed that imagination could leap from Olympus to the stars, and that failure sometimes seeds immortality. Hercules Against the Moon. Men remains a glorious testament to Italian cinema's fearless weirdness. Number 9. The Fantastic Voyage of Sinbad, 1963. Long before computer magic, Italian filmmakers summoned worlds of wonder with paint and mirrors. The Fantastic Voyage of Sinbad, known locally as Le Meraviglie di Aladino, was one of those golden illusions. Directed by Mario Bava and Henry Levin, it followed Sinbad's journey through deserts ruled by sorcery genies and kingdoms, suspended between East and West. Unlike Hollywood's polished fantasies, this one carried dreamlike poetry. Miniature palaces floated against matte-painted skies. Smoke curled like living serpents. Italian critics praised its artistry while foreign markets struggled to label it. Was it children's fantasy or adult allegory? Beneath its bright surface lay political commentary on colonial greed and freedom. Some censors demanded cuts claiming its depiction of rebellion echoed recent wars of independence. Behind the scenes, egos clashed. Two directors, two visions. Bava wanted visual myth. Levin wanted family adventure. Actors switched languages mid-scene. The result was chaotic but mesmerizing. An Arabian Nights filtered through European surrealism. The film earned mild success, yet disappeared quickly when American distributors failed to market it. Decades later, film restorers uncovered its original negatives, revealing colors so vivid they seemed alive. Today it stands as a bridge between mythic past and psychedelic future, a reminder that imagination is the greatest magic of all. Number 8. Wild Planet, 1963. When Antonio Margheriti returned to the cosmos with Wild Planet, he aimed to outdo his earlier space adventures. The result was both dazzling and delirious. The film opens with explorers on a mission to investigate a strange celestial body that behaves like a living organism. The planet itself breathes pulses and reacts to human presence like a wounded animal. What begins as a routine survey becomes a surreal descent into a biological nightmare. Critics at the time didn't know what to make of it. They called it too intellectual for pulp fans and too cheap for serious critics. Yet audiences were hypnotized by its colors. The swirling reds and purples made the planet look alive. Margheriti shot everything inside Cinecittà Studios, using painted glass panels and aquarium tanks to create cosmic fog. He fused art and science with bold experimentation rarely seen outside avant-garde cinema. Censors grew nervous. Italy's Ministry of Culture questioned whether the film's depiction of a living planet symbolized God or a godless universe. The studio was ordered to alter several lines of dialogue that referenced divine creation. American distributors later dubbed it poorly and released it under multiple titles. It bombed overseas but achieved quiet reverence at home among science students and dreamers who saw it as a metaphor for mankind's arrogance. Behind the camera, chaos reigned. Models caught fire. One explosion nearly destroyed the miniature spacecraft set. Margheriti reportedly wept at the premiere after hearing that critics walked out halfway through. But decades later, scholars hailed Wild Planet as visionary eco-science fiction long before Hollywood embraced the concept. Today it stands as an eerie prophecy about humanity's fragile relationship with nature and the cosmos. A strange, haunting whisper from the past, reminding us that even the universe feels pain when touched without care. Number 7. The Day the Sky Exploded, 1958. Before Italy's colorful 60s era even began, one black and white film dared to launch the country into space. The Day the Sky Exploded, directed by Paolo Hoish, is considered the first true Italian science fiction feature. It told of a rocket experiment gone wrong that sends a swarm of asteroids hurtling toward Earth. The world must unite to survive a cosmic apocalypse. For 1958, this was revolutionary. Italy's film industry was recovering from war and poverty. There were no special effects budgets, no NASA footage, no precedent. Hoish used hand-painted glass and fireworks to simulate meteors. The result looked primitive but powerful. The film became a national conversation about science and responsibility. It reflected Italy's post-war fear of technology gone rogue, a fear shared by a generation still haunted by bombs. Censors demanded script revisions. The Catholic press objected to scenes showing scientists playing God. American producers wanted more explosions. Hoish resisted turning it into spectacle, insisting the true drama was moral, not visual. The studio threatened to replace him, but he finished the film on his own terms. When it premiered, many Italians left theaters shaken. It felt too close to reality. Newspapers accused it of spreading Cold War panic. Yet that same unease made it timeless. Years later, directors like Stanley Kubrick and George Pal cited it as an influence for its stark portrayal of human unity under cosmic threat. The Day the Sky Exploded became a forgotten cornerstone, the seed of Italian sci-fi that inspired an entire generation of dreamers and filmmakers. Its legacy reminds us that courage is not in budgets but in belief. One camera, one story, and the courage to imagine the end of the world before it arrives. Number 6. Battle of the Worlds, 1961. Battle of the Worlds was not supposed to exist. Its director, Antonio Margheriti, was given almost no money, only a few sets, and a dream. Yet he created one of the most bizarre cosmic adventures ever made. The story begins when astronomers discover a rogue planet on a collision course with Earth. Soon, mysterious alien ships emerge, launching a war across the stars. The film's star, Claude Rains, delivered a performance so intense it overshadowed the budget's limitations. He played a scientist who refuses to accept humanity's doom. His dialogue felt almost Shakespearean, as he declared that reason itself might save the universe. Critics praised his acting, but mocked everything else: the wobbly models, the painted skies, the thunderous narration. What they missed was Margheriti's raw ambition. Behind-the-scenes production was turbulent. Lights overheated, miniatures melted. Rains grew frustrated by the slow pace and refused to redo takes. The director re-edited sequences overnight, using optical tricks to hide errors. At one point, a reel went missing and had to be replaced with still images. Despite chaos, the finished film radiated sincerity. When released, American distributors rebranded it with lurid posters, promising galactic battles that never appeared. It became a late-night television staple, mocked yet remembered. But over time, historians recognized it as a triumph of imagination over means. Its themes of faith versus logic influenced future Italian filmmakers and even echoed in foreign cult classics. Battle of the Worlds endures as a symbol of defiance. It shouted that even small nations could challenge Hollywood's monopoly on the stars. It proved that science fiction need not be polished to be profound. It only needed vision, heart, and the courage to dream past gravity. Number 5. The Mill of the Stone. Women, 1960. Among Italy's eerie early fantasies, The Mill of the Stone Women remains one of the most haunting and misunderstood. Directed by Giorgio Ferroni, it was the first Italian horror film shot in color, and it blurred the boundary between Gothic terror and science fiction mystery. The film followed a young art student who visits a secluded windmill owned by a mysterious sculptor. Inside, he discovers horrifyingly lifelike statues that seem to move and breathe when no one is watching. At the time of its release, critics were confused. Some saw it as an artistic masterpiece, while others called it indecent and grotesque. The plot involved a scientist who uses living tissue to create his statues, a direct challenge to moral and religious sensibilities of post-war Italy. Censors stepped in, demanding heavy edits to remove scenes implying human resurrection. German distributors cut more than 10 minutes, labeling it too disturbing for theaters. Behind the scenes, Ferroni's production faced chaos. The film's elaborate mechanical sets malfunctioned daily. The fog machines filled the studio so thickly that actors stumbled into walls. The lead actress fainted twice during the climactic sequence where the statues come to life. Despite all of this, Ferroni pressed on, guided by a single vision: to craft beauty from decay. The Mill of the Stone. Women eventually became a cult phenomenon, especially in France and the United States. Its haunting imagery influenced later Italian Gothic masters like Mario Bava and Riccardo Freda. Today it stands as an unsettling fable about art obsession and mortality. It warned that beauty without compassion leads to monstrosity, and that even art can bleed when its creator forgets the human soul behind it. Number 4. War of the Planets, 1966. War of the Planets exploded onto Italian screens during a period when space fever gripped the world. Directed by Antonio Margheriti, it was part of the famous Gamma 1 saga, but it stood apart for its ambition and eerie atmosphere. The film followed an astronaut crew who discovered that invisible alien forces are invading human minds, turning men against each other. Unlike the colorful optimism of American sci-fi, Margheriti's world was bleak and paranoid. The story reflected Italy's growing anxiety about technology and political manipulation. Critics accused the film of being anti-American, while others praised its psychological depth. Its release triggered censorship debates in several countries, where television networks refused to air it, fearing its portrayal of mass mind control resembled Cold War propaganda. Production conditions were brutal. The special effects team built space interiors from washing machine parts and scrap metal. Actors wore helmets made of glass bowls. During filming, one of the wires supporting an actor snapped, causing a near-fatal fall. The director himself performed reshoots to finish the sequence. Despite its humble scale, War of the Planets radiated ambition. Audiences in the 60s did not know what to make of it. Some laughed, others stared in stunned silence. Over time, however, its visionary approach earned respect. Scholars now view it as one of the earliest films to merge cosmic horror with political allegory. The film's message still resonates today, that the greatest wars are not fought between planets, but within the human mind itself. War of the Planets remains an underrated gem, a monument to Italy's courage to imagine the universe as both wondrous and terrifying. It asked one timeless question: what happens when we finally meet ourselves among the stars? Number 3, The Girl Who Knew Too Much, 1963. Before giallo became a global phenomenon, there was one film that started it all, The Girl Who Knew Too Much. Directed by Mario Bava, this masterpiece blended suspense, mystery, and psychological horror with a touch of surrealism. It told the story of an American tourist in Rome who witnesses a murder on the Spanish Steps, but no one believes her. The line between dream and reality collapses as she becomes trapped in a web of paranoia. The film's reputation was turbulent from the start. Italian critics dismissed it as too Hitchcockian, while American distributors re-edited it into a romantic thriller to hide its darker edge. Yet beneath its glossy surface, Bava crafted a story about fear and perception, about how truth can vanish in a world that denies what it cannot explain. Censors grew uneasy with its depiction of female independence and madness. In conservative 60s Italy, a woman questioning authority and her own sanity was seen as dangerous. Bava fought to keep the ambiguity intact, refusing to confirm whether the events were real or imagined. His cinematographer used deep shadows and tilted angles to trap viewers inside her mind. Behind the camera, chaos unfolded. Budget cuts forced Bava to reuse leftover film stock from another production. The crew worked through the night, lighting entire streets with flashbulbs. The result was hypnotic, a noir landscape drenched in fear and beauty. Though not a commercial hit, The Girl Who Knew Too Much inspired decades of Italian thrillers. It birthed the giallo genre that would define 70s horror. Today it stands as a haunting testament to perception and paranoia, reminding us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters live inside the imagination itself. Number 2, Castle of Blood, 1964. Few Italian fantasies blended the supernatural and the scientific, like Antonio Margheriti's Castle of Blood. It was atmospheric, haunting, and entirely ahead of its time. The film followed a skeptical journalist who accepts a bet to spend one night in a haunted castle to prove ghosts do not exist. As midnight falls, he discovers that the spirits within the castle feed on the living to regain their strength. At its release, the movie terrified audiences, but enraged critics. Italy's censorship board demanded changes, claiming the depiction of the afterlife contradicted Christian doctrine. American distributors chopped entire sequences and dubbed it poorly. Even so, it became an underground sensation whispered about by film students and horror aficionados who recognized its poetic dread. The film's production was as eerie as its plot. The castle used for filming was freezing cold. Actors performed surrounded by real skeletons borrowed from a university's anatomy department. Candles melted under studio heat, and bats escaped from cages mid-scene. Barbara Steele, who played the ghostly lead, endured fainting spells under thick makeup. Yet her haunting presence became legendary. Castle of Blood endures as a Gothic masterpiece that bridges fantasy and existential philosophy. It asked a simple yet timeless question: what if the dead envy the living more than we fear them? The answer still chills viewers today. Number 1, Planet on the Prowl, 1966. Planet on the Prowl, directed by Antonio Margheriti, closed out Italy's golden run of cosmic dreams with an unforgettable bang. It told of astronauts who land on a planet consumed by an intelligent fungus that infects human bodies and minds. What began as exploration turned into cosmic infection. The film's eerie, slow pacing and tragic tone felt decades ahead of its time. Critics at first dismissed it as nonsense, but beneath the pulp imagery lay a reflection of Cold War anxiety and human fragility. The alien fungus mirrored society's fear of conformity and control. Italian scientists publicly criticized the film for exaggerating biological mutation, while moral groups accused it of being anti-religious. In the United States, it was re-edited under multiple titles and marketed as a monster flick. Behind the scenes, everything went wrong. The camera crew fought constant power failures. The studio flooded during shooting, ruining costumes and props. Margheriti reportedly collapsed from exhaustion, but the result was mesmerizing. A slow, creeping dread that would later inspire Ridley Scott's Alien and John Carpenter's The Thing. Today, Planet on the Prowl stands as a strange monument to human terror and wonder. It reminds us that imagination can predict our future fears, and that sometimes the monsters we meet among the stars are reflections of ourselves. These Italian visions may have faded from theaters, but their echoes remain in every modern sci-fi dream. They dared to imagine beyond fear, beyond faith, beyond reason. Which of these forgotten worlds shocked you the most? Let me know below, and do not forget to like, subscribe, and share for more journeys into cinema's strangest corners.